Formula One has been playing around on their track in Bahrain for the past 3 days. Today is day 3 that they'll be doing so. And with me, I have two very special guests on Lights Out today. Hello and welcome to our second ever episode of Lights Out. Joining me is Derek Jacobs, a returning face on Lights Out, the Secretary General of the Namibia Motorsport Federation and a Training and Development Officer for the FIA in Africa. And here to my right, your left, Adriaan Nel, former FSA F4 driver last year and a guy who knows the history and the mechanics of a car pretty well. So what we are going to be handling today with you guys is testing. Let's take it from the top. First impressions. I think we're going to start with the new face. Adriaan, what were your first impressions?
I was quite impressed with the new sound of the cars. They're quite loud, especially on, like we saw it now at the testing. They're practicing the starts, how high they need to rev the cars now to get the turbo spooled. It's quite amazing, to be honest.
Yeah, although for me, emotionally, I would really love if we did away with practice starts in testing, because every time I go, somebody stopped on the side of the track. Derek, how do you feel about testing so far?
Well, I still believe there's a lot of sandbagging. We were chatting about Aston Martin that claims they're 4.6 seconds off the front of the grid, but we never know with testing because you don't know who's running what fuel load, etc., what configuration. But I know the reason why the cars are sounding louder because of the absence of the MGU-H, and they need to spool up the turbo much more now. We'll explain why it's gone and how it works. But the Audi apparently is the loudest of the lot.
Yeah, I had a heard a practice start this morning. It was quite extreme.
Yes.
Yeah. So before we get to the MGU-H and all of that lovely stuff, let's have a look at our total laps completed by the end of testing day 2. Williams leading the pack with 276 laps, that obviously after they completed 0 laps in the Barcelona shakedown. Ferrari comes in second with 271 laps and McLaren hot on their heels with 261 laps. Haas was very surprising to me personally at testing, was 245 laps. Audi 236 with their loud start. Red Bull 223 laps, also a strong contender during testing. Cadillac, the newbies on the grid, 216 laps. Racing Bulls quite a bit behind their sister team, 208 laps. Alpine 174 laps. Mercedes 143. And Aston Martin at 134 laps, the least of the entire grid. So I'm going to, before we get to the MGU-H, I'm going to throw it to Adriaan for a bit. Testing is significant, we know that, but obviously we can't read too much into what's happening now. Could you explain to our lovely viewers why?
So to what Derek also said, with the fuel loads and such, so some teams might be focusing on the pure pace of the car, quali pace, getting the balance worked out, which we saw a lot of into turn 10, a lot of locking of most of the teams into there. So they're trying to get the balance brake bias, firstly, especially with a lot of the mechanical side of the car changing and recovery. There's a lot more recovery on the rear axle. So I see a lot of front locking, so that bias is still a struggle for most of the teams. But most of the teams are also doing long runs, so high fuel loads, race pace. So it's very difficult to know what the plans are for the teams, different development cycles, what they're trying to do. So that's why the pace is such broad. We can't definitely say, oh, this team's up front now, they're going to be race pace or quali pace, they're going to be there. So we have to take it with a bit of grain of salt, but I'm sure by the end of the testing next week, we will definitely have more of a picture of true pace of the teams.
Yeah. And just to play devil's advocate in that point, one thing that is extremely significant in testing is your data, because this is where your first set of upgrades starts. This is where you look at another guy and you see he's doing maybe a bit better than you, and look at your own faults and start to develop your upgrades and your improvements from there. And that takes absolutely months. So that's going to be, I think, after the first third of the season roundabout, you'll see the first major upgrades coming in, and that's from data that they got from testing. So Derek, finally, MGU-H. We spoke about energy recovery now.
Yeah, before we go to that, just to add on to what Adriaan is saying, the thing about sandbagging stopped at the beginning of 2009, and I don't know if you know why, because when Ross Brawn came with his team, which was ex-Honda, etc., when they put their car on the track, the correlation was actually better than they got in the
Mm.
wind tunnel, and they were 1.7 seconds quicker than everybody else. So they thought they had their calculations wrong, and they were actually testing at that pace, and when they realized that's actually the true pace of the car, they decided no, they needed to dial it back
Mhm.
because everybody else is going to see
Mhm.
that they have this big advantage. So coming back to the MGUH, so in trying to get new manufacturers into Formula One, they had to do away with the MGUH. So the MGUH, what it does is it's an electric motor attached to the turbo, which helps spin up the turbo. I won't say
Mhm.
spool because maybe some
Yeah.
people don't understand. Spins up the turbo to prevent turbo lag, so there's
Mhm.
always power, but it also acts in reverse to generate electricity for the power for the batteries
Mhm.
for the car. So they did away with it because apparently there's 10 years of technology in that system. So anybody that's going to come in now will be on the back foot. They'll have to play catch up with
Mhm.
10 years. So that was the easiest way that they could do away with it. And this is why we have
Mhm.
Audi and Cadillac in Formula One at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just a quick note, I thought about it now. If you're listening to this and you don't know what sandbagging is, you're very new to Formula One, you don't know what sandbagging is, it's various techniques, like Adrian said, fuel load, etc., that teams may use to make their car seem slower in testing. And that's because of the psychology of Formula One. You look at the other guy, and if he's really fast, you want to be more like him. So if you see a slow car, you're not going to want to be like him, and they're not going to try and rip you off for another couple of weeks at least
Yes.
until they see you out on track. So then the big talk of this season, front wings. I think the big regulation changes with overtake mode. It was manual override mode, or MOM, it's now overtake mode. Used to be very close to the former DRS. X mode, Y mode, cornering, all of those things. A lot of that is dependent on the mechanics of your front wing. Derek, you have a lot to say about front wings. We've spoken about this. You have a lot to say about
I have a
front
lot to
wings.
say about aerodynamics. Firstly, we need to make our viewers understand that they've dialed back on the ground effects. So
Mhm.
if you don't understand what ground effects is, it creates a vacuum under the
Mhm.
car.
And it
The shape of the
suctions.
car, yes, is an inverted aeroplane
Mhm.
wing, so it creates suction, which also caused porpoising, where the cars were hopping and causing all kinds of things.
Mhm.
So they've dialed back on that a bit. So we're going back to pure aerodynamics with a little bit of ground effects like we've seen prior to 2022.
Yep.
So if you look at the front wings, you'll see all little turning vanes, etc., etc. And that's to tune the airflow under the car and also
Mhm.
away from the car. So that some teams deliberately created what they call outwash to affect
Mhm.
the car's aerodynamics next door so that they lose a bit of downforce. So you'll see also on the barge boards, which are those little upright sections on the side of the car, which are part of the floor, you'll see all little pieces of turning
Mhm.
vanes, etc. And that's just to tune the airflow of the car to get a better flow over the body
Mhm.
to make the car stick better to
Mhm.
the ground.
Yeah.
But having said that, you would have noticed that Audi has come back with the old style of Mercedes with a zero side pod.
Mhm.
Now, Mercedes went that route before, but they came unstuck because the way the ground effects worked, they needed the side pod to interact with the ground effects.
Yeah.
But now that we have less ground effects, maybe that principle's going to work now. So let's see
Mhm.
what's going to happen.
Yeah, that leads me to my next question, Adrian. You've been very quiet, and like I say, you know the history quite a bit. We are seeing a resurgence almost in historical Formula One designs, with the
Yes.
barge boards that are now required, with Adrian Newey's Viking horns on the Aston Martin, with less ground force, less downforce. We are seeing a resurgence in old designs. Which old designs do you think might work this time around?
Well, I had an interesting look at this morning at the barge boards and everything, what's going on. There's a few different designs. I think Audi had a very interesting concept going on that barge
Mhm.
board at the bottom with a 3-element piece,
Mhm.
which is not 3-element because they added like a small loophole in the rules again. And I
Yeah.
think that's why Audi might be a dark horse for this year. When any motorsport they enter, they're always a dark horse. But I definitely think, like Derek said, the zero side pod design, getting the airflow over the car is more important now than it was previously.
Mhm.
So I think that might be something that we should have a look at. Otherwise, the rules are quite restrictive some new things, some old things will come through, but I think some new designs definitely, not if not this year with updates, definitely next year with something new.
Derek, anything else?
Yeah, we
that's
also
interesting
need to
come
let
up?
our viewers know that previously the rules determined that aerodynamics had to be fixed.
Mhm.
The only thing that could move was the DRS flaps,
Yes.
which is still
Mhm.
opening, but it's
Yeah.
working slightly
Yeah.
differently now. But the front wing can be adjusted on the go.
Mhm.
Because before, if you wanted to adjust the front wing, you had to do so when the car came into the pits, make the adjustment and go out. But
Mhm.
you'll see that, I noticed also in testing that some of the cars' front wings actually opened up a bit
Mhm.
with the back wing to get better airflow.
Mhm.
And another interesting thing from the new aerodynamics and the way the power is generated, you are aware that Formula One hit its highest top speed in this week, 344
Mhm.
kilometers per hour.
Yes. That also,
Yeah.
if you're new to racing and motorsport, a more electric car tends to be
Yes.
faster. So I think that was an expected side effect. And then unexpected side effects of that might be safety. You were telling me about the lights on the front of the mirrors this time, so that if the car spins, they can see
Yes.
it in bad weather coming from the front. Yeah, so safety might be something we need to look
Something
at.
else the viewers must also go and look at. You can't actually see it on television.
Don't look at me, look at
Oh,
the
sorry.
viewer, Derek.
You can't always see it on television, but it's the colors of the lights on the car.
Mhm.
They change. They're
Mhm.
not always red.
Mhm.
So it's an indication to everyone outside what state the car's in, whether it's safe to approach, because you must
Mhm.
remember the voltage in that motor car is extremely high and it can shock you and kill
Yeah.
you. So the lights will tell you what the car's doing. Whether it's green,
Mhm.
good to go. If it's purple, if it's in like a half down state, etc., etc.
Okay, and then lastly, boost and overtake mode. Obviously, various different modes being introduced now. About I think it's a Ferrari F40 horsepower being introduced in boost mode now. So the FIA swears boost mode, overtake mode is so much different from a DRS, and we're not going to look at Derek because he is by some extension FIA. Adrian, do you think overtake mode is very different from DRS?
Technically, it's not. Oh, it is different, but
It is in name.
it's in name it's different. But the
Different but same.
concept it's the same. It's just got, like we said, previous DRS had the rear wing. Now we got the rear and the front wing,
Yeah.
as well as electronic more power that's being introduced here. So it's more factors being at play here. So it's going to be a lot more powerful. It's
Mhm.
going to promote a lot more overtaking, but it might create extreme high speeds if
Yeah.
there's like 5 cars in the train with slipstream with this activated. I mean, it might get interesting, or it might just be a snooze fest. But well, we have to wait and see.
I certainly know for the driver it's going to be interesting because a lot of drivers have said that the car is a bit more twitchy,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because so it's
Yeah.
the drivers are going to have their hands full. And I know as good as Max is, he's starting to re-look Formula One because he believes it's not fun anymore, which I don't blame him, because you're not here to manage a car, you're here to race,
Yeah.
against
Yeah,
your
yeah.
opponent. So
Mm-hmm.
let's see what happens.
It's
Yeah.
going more like the endurance style now. You're more managing the car than just true pace, like in the early 2005s, the early 2000s. I mean, they were pushing, and now you have to manage tires, you have to manage your fuel load now, you have to manage additionally the electronical load that you put on the car and your battery, what you have on the battery. So it becomes like a snooze. Yeah, okay, I have to not push for 2 laps, and then you can push for 4 corners, and then if you miss your chance, then you have to do it again. And yes, it's technical, but some people
It's
enjoy
like
it.
a
other
high-speed
people-
chess game now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You need to have strategy, bigger
Exactly.
strategy.
and it gets frustrating as L4 driver. I can definitely
Yes.
vouch for that.
Speaking of strategy, if you need to rethink your strategy in this episode right now and need to rethink on the elements we've just introduced into your strategy, maybe use this ad break.
Life is unpredictable and one needs to be protected against any eventuality. Get Santam legal access from as little as 50 Namibian dollars a month for when you find yourself in need of legal representation due to civil cases, criminal prosecution, and family matters such as divorce, child maintenance, and custody. It also covers labor disputes, disciplinary hearings, and unfair dismissal or retrenchment. With Santam Legal Access, you'll receive free legal advice on almost every legal aspect, whether the specific matter is covered by your policy or not. For true peace of mind and legal protection when you need it most, call us on 061 292 8000. Santam. This is freedom.
We are back with Derek Jacobs and Adriaan Nel, and if you missed our first part, there were allegations of sandbagging, but let's have a look at the times and the fastest laps for the various teams. Ferrari leading the pack there with a 1:34.273. McLaren hot on the heels in a 1:34.669. Red Bull also in that and on the podium there, if you could say so, with a 1:34.798. Haas again a surprising contender to me, and I'd love to chat to you about it just now. A 1:35.394. Mercedes with a 1:35.466. Audi with a 1:36.670. Alpine with a 1:36.765. Cadillac with a 1:36.824. Williams quite low. They were saying they were focusing on 2026, and 2026 so far is a 1:37.229 for them. Racing Bulls with a 1:37.470, and Aston Martin may or may not be sandbagging with a 1:38.248. So, Derek, Haas, very surprising to me. They've been kind of back of the field, back of the midfield for the past couple of years. They've had notoriously a very tough time changing team principals, I believe last season with Ayao Komatsu. How are you feeling about Haas at this point?
I think they're a dark horse at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You must remember they also have some serious backing from Toyota, technical backing. And for those who don't know, Toyota was also in F1 many years ago, and I kind of think that that's the Toyota team of the future. But then you must also remember there's half a Ferrari in that car. You know, it's been tried and tested. But then again, not to take anything away from them, the car builder, Dallara, the Italian manufacturer, has been around the block a good few times. So they understand motor racing. So I think the package is coming nicely together. So yeah, we wish them all the best for the season, and we might see them move midfield to the front coming this season.
Maybe even best of the rest, you never know.
You never know.
It was one thing that made me very excited for Haas when they got Ayao Komatsu in, somebody with an engineering background, and the same for Williams. I was very excited when they got James Vowles in with a very strong engineering background. One thing about Williams that worries me is this season is very electrical, if you haven't noticed yet. The season's very electrical. They've notoriously had electrical issues in the past. Do you think they carry that forward?
Which I find strange, because they supply the motors and the battery packs for Formula E. They've got a side hustle, and they've been doing it for years. You know, they also were involved in road car manufacturing, electrical systems. So that I find very strange. But then again, with new rules, we're all trying out different things, so they must probably play catch up here, like Aston Martin, you know. So we'll see.
Yeah, Adriaan, anybody who surprised you at testing?
Well, I just had a look at for me, what was interesting is definitely the powertrains. It's new powertrains, and there was no major issues currently. So I would say, but Mercedes had put a lot of laps in the Barcelona for sure. So I was quite surprised by that.
Yeah, they also led the pack in Bahrain.
Sorry.
They also led the pack in Barcelona.
Yes.
And that also brings me to something that you said you would like to speak about, is the difference in testing in Barcelona versus Bahrain.
So definitely Barcelona is a very more high speed, more aero-focused track, where Bahrain is more stop and go track.
Yeah.
And that's definitely what I brought up earlier was the brakes, where Barcelona, they could carry use the brakes deep into the corners due to the aero load being on it. But now, having to stop the car with the aero loads going off, you're going to more mechanical grip of the car. And that's why I say it's a struggle with that. And especially with the tires that have this thin sidewalls. I know we've got experience, they got experience from it previously, but it's still a new concept, new aero loads. It's difficult for the teams to still understand this. But it's good to see we can compare a high downforce track compared to a lower downforce track with more speed. So it's good to, I think, at the end of all the testing, compare it and see what teams stood out together with this testing, and not just take one track and say, oh, this team is going to be fast.
Yeah, I think one big difference between these two tracks, I'll get to you now, Derek. One big difference that maybe is a lot more accidental than tactical from Formula One side and from the team side is in Barcelona they did get some running in the rain on day 2,
Yes.
and in Bahrain it was very hot on the opposite end. But your point, Derek.
Now, I just wanted to mention something that Adrian pointed out, the brakes. So I don't even notice that the brake ducts, as compared to the previous years, have actually gone smaller.
Some
Yeah,
teams
they don't have these
brake ducts
ears.
at all.
Yeah, they
currently.
don't have these ears that are sticking out
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
They're more flat and closer to what we call the Caton, which is the housing around the brakes. And I think that's got something to do with the airflow around the car and around the front suspension.
Yeah. And for you as the viewer, again, if you're new to Formula One and you're ever unfortunate enough to see a tire exclusively pop off a car, that black thing you'll see where the tire was, that's the Caton.
No,
Yeah.
no, that's the rim. The Caton is a carbon fiber housing which goes over the whole brake assembly and it closes the brakes.
Yeah, so great.
But the rim has to come off before you can actually see that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I always thought that was the Caton.
No.
It's like almost a
Every day.
sealed
Wow.
capsule there. 'cause it
You see,
controls
that's why
all
you
the
have us
airflow.
here.
You see, I'm not the expert by myself. I need the experts around me, otherwise I might lie to
No.
you guys.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Caton is the cover.
Okay, and then just quickly before we go, we did want to talk about synthetic fuel for a bit. Why the move to synthetic fuel? The synthetic fuel isn't as synthetic as you think. It's the same compound, it's just created differently.
So we first need to tell our viewers what synthetic fuel is. Okay, or maybe we need to go a step further back and as to why there's synthetic fuel and why there's electricity in internal combustion engine racing. It's for sustainability. The FIA is on a road to sustainability by 2030. So we all know that internal combustion engines are polluting our environment, so they're just trying to cut back on
That's
that.
like polluting.
Yeah, I also want to say, like, why is this going on?
Yeah.
The air
It's
quotes.
the Aston Martin Viking laws. So the fuel for a long time, motorsport, and I wear my FIA hat, motorsport used to run on pump-based fuel. So the fuel that you purchase at the fuel station is what they base their fuel on. And the reason for that was that before they ran what they called jungle juice. And believe it or not, some of naphthalene, which we all know as mothballs, because it increased the firing power of the fuel. So now, and then they went to pump fuel, and there's still a lot of codes that run on pump fuel, but Formula One and one or two other codes are on what they call sustainable fuel, which is made from recycled material. So it's not necessarily a fossil fuel, which we know as diesel and petrol, which comes out of the ground. It's made of anything else, waste matter, sugar, ethanol, the whole
Plastic,
shit.
whatever you wanna
whatever it also makes fuel.
Yeah. Okay. So on that note, that's unfortunately all the time we have right now. Genuinely, we have had conversations like this for hours. We could go for
Oh, yeah,
hours.
for sure.
But we only have so much time here on Lights Out. Thank you both for joining me. It was
No, it's a
It's a
fantastic to
pleasure
have
being
you.
here.
Remember, you can catch Lights Out every Friday at 5:30 on Network Television, DSTV 285 and GoTV 25 in Namibia, or oneup2.com online. So until next week, drive it like you stole it.
Bye.